Hey folks, I ain't much of a storyteller, but something happened here in our little town that I gotta share with y'all. It's been gnawing at me since it happened, and I reckon it's best to get it off my chest. It was a regular Tuesday evening, the kind where the sun sets slow and casts long shadows over the streets. I was coming home from work, minding my own business when I saw it. Or rather, I saw her. She was standing there on the sidewalk, just under the flickering streetlight. Looked like she was waiting for someone, or maybe just lost in thought. I didn't pay her much mind at first, just kept walking like always. But then, something caught my eye. A shadow, moving where there shouldn't have been none. I turned back to look, and that's when I saw him. Her ex-husband, Jack, standing across the street, watching her with eyes full of hate. Now, I ain't one to gossip, but everyone in town knows about Jack and his temper. He and his wife, Sarah, they had a rough time of it, what with his drinking and all. Folks say he was never the same after he retired from the force, like he lost a part of himself out there on the streets. Anyway, I didn't think much of it at the time. Figured it was just another one of their arguments, nothing new for them. But then, the next day, Sarah was gone. They found her body down by the river, washed up on the banks like a piece of driftwood. She'd been beaten pretty bad, her face all swollen and bruised. It was a shock to us all, seeing something like that happen in our quiet little town. Of course, the police started investigating, but they didn't get very far. No witnesses, no evidence, just a whole lot of questions with no answers. But Jack, he wasn't about to let it go. He started digging, talking to anyone who'd listen, trying to piece together what happened to his ex-wife. And the more he dug, the more he uncovered.
Turns out, Sarah had been having trouble with the folks next door, a couple of real weirdos who kept to themselves most of the time. Jack talked to their neighbors and they told him some pretty strange things. Seems like the folks next door weren't right in the head, always muttering to themselves and carrying on like they was possessed. And on the night Sarah disappeared, they'd been acting even stranger than usual. Jack put two and two together, and what he found was downright terrifying. Turns out, those folks next door had been watching Sarah, following her around town like shadows in the night. And when Jack confronted them about it, they didn't deny a thing. They said they'd seen Sarah with another man, someone who wasn't Jack, said they saw her laughing and carrying on like she didn't have a care in the world. And when Jack asked them where they were that night, they just laughed and slammed the door in his face. Jack knew then and there that they were lying, that they knew something about what happened to Sarah, but try as he might, he couldn't get nothing out of them. So now, here we are, still wondering what happened to poor Sarah and who's responsible for her death. Some folks say it was just a tragic accident, that she must have slipped and fell into the river. But those of us who knew her, who saw the way Jack looked at her that night, we ain't so sure. All I know is there's something dark lurking in our town, something that ain't right. And until we figure out what it is, I reckon we'll all be looking over our shoulders, wondering if we'll be the next ones to disappear into the shadows.